I did something a little different this week. Instead of just telling you a product is a good deal, I actually went home, opened up my laptop, and looked up the closest equivalent to 10 specific Dollar Tree items on the websites of boutique home stores, specialty beauty retailers, and higher-end department stores. I wanted real numbers, not vague guesses, and by the time I added up all 10 prices from those other websites, the total came to something that genuinely stopped me for a second, because I had paid $12.50 for the exact same 10 items at Dollar Tree. Today, I'm walking you through every single one of these, showing you exactly what they cost here, what the closest equivalent costs elsewhere, and why the gap is so enormous on some of these that it almost feels like a pricing mistake. Stick around until the very end because I'm going to reveal the full combined total from the pricier retailers, and it is well over $200 for items that cost you about the same as a fast food meal here. Before I get into the list, I want to be upfront about how I actually did this comparison, because I think the method matters just as much as the final number. For each item, I looked for the closest realistic match in material, size, and finish, not just anything vaguely similar with a bigger price tag slapped on it. I wasn't trying to find the most expensive version of each product to make the gap look artificially bigger than it really is. I was trying to find a fair, honest equivalent, the kind of thing you'd actually consider buying if you walked into one of these pricier stores looking for the exact same item. Number 1. A hyaluronic acid facial serum in a small glass dropper bottle. At Dollar Tree, this runs $1.25. I looked up a nearly identical formulation, same core ingredient, similar bottle size, from a well-known skincare brand sold at a specialty beauty retailer, and it rang up at $22. That's not a typo. The base ingredient, hyaluronic acid, is manufactured industrially and sold in bulk to cosmetic companies, regardless of what brand ends up putting their name on the bottle, which means the raw cost difference between the dollar version and the $22 version is a lot smaller than the price tag would suggest. In fact, the raw ingredient itself typically costs manufacturers just pennies per bottle at industrial scale, regardless of which brand ultimately bottles and markets it to consumers. The Pricer version does add a nicer glass dropper applicator and slightly more elegant packaging, along with a brand name that carries some marketing weight, but the actual hydrating performance on your skin comes from the same basic molecule doing the same basic job. I've been using the Dollar Tree version under my moisturizer every morning for the past few weeks, and my skin genuinely feels just as hydrated as it did with the pricier bottle sitting in my bathroom cabinet before this. If skincare is where a chunk of your monthly budget quietly disappears, this is one of the easiest swaps on this entire list to make immediately. I actually compared the ingredient list on the back of both bottles side by side in my kitchen, and hyaluronic acid was listed near the top of both, which is usually a decent indicator of concentration relative to other filler ingredients, even without a lab test to confirm the exact percentage. Up next is a kitchen item that surprised me the most out of everything I researched. Number 2. A faux marble cutting board. At Dollar Tree, this is $1.50. I found a strikingly similar-looking marble-patterned cutting board at a home goods boutique website, and it was priced at $19. The Dollar Tree version isn't real marble, it's a printed pattern on a composite material, but from a few feet away on a kitchen counter, the visual effect is nearly identical, and that's really the whole point of a decorative cutting board in the first place, since most people use it more for serving cheese and charcuterie than for actually chopping vegetables on it daily. Even up close under normal kitchen lighting, the printed veining pattern reads as convincingly marble-like, and I've genuinely had to explain to guests more than once that it isn't the real thing. The surface holds up fine for occasional cutting, though I wouldn't recommend it as your primary heavy-duty cutting board for raw meat prep, more as a serving piece for cheese, crackers, and fruit when you have guests over. The weight is noticeably lighter than real marble or the pricier composite version, which actually makes it easier to move around and store, something the expensive version doesn't necessarily have going for it. For anyone who likes hosting but doesn't want to spend real money on what is essentially a decorative serving tray, this is one of the most obvious wins on the entire list. I've used mine for 2 different gatherings now, arranging cheese, crackers, and grapes across it, and every single time, at least one guest has asked where I got it, visibly surprised when I told them the actual price. The next item took me completely by surprise when I saw the price difference in writing. Number 3. A braided jute doormat. At Dollar Tree, a smaller-sized version runs $1.50. I found a nearly identical braided jute doormat, same natural fiber material, similar woven pattern, at a home decor retailer, priced at $24. Natural jute fiber is a genuinely inexpensive raw material worldwide, which makes this one of those categories where the manufacturing cost gap between a dollar store version and a boutique version is especially small, and most of that $24 price tag is really paying for brand packaging and a nicer in-store display rather than dramatically different rope quality. The Dollar Tree version is smaller than a full-sized entry mat, so if you have a wide doorway, you might want two placed side by side rather than expecting one to cover the whole entrance. But for a side door, a back porch, or a smaller apartment entryway, the size works perfectly as is. The natural fiber holds up reasonably well to regulate foot traffic and shakes clean easily outdoors. For something that sits outside getting stepped on and weathered by rain and sun regardless of what you paid for it, spending $24 on this specific item never made much sense to me once I saw this side-by-side comparison. If anything, I'd argue an outdoor doormat is exactly the category where overspending makes the least sense, since it's going to get dirty, faded, and eventually replaced regardless of how much you originally paid for it. Moving on to a storage item that quietly does more for organizing chaos than almost anything else on this list. Number 4. A woven seagrass storage basket with handles. At Dollar Tree, this runs $1.50. I found a nearly identical woven basket, same natural material, similar size and handle style, at a well-known home organization retailer, priced at $26. Seagrass and similar natural woven materials are relatively cheap to source and weave, especially at the scale major retailers purchasing at, which again means a huge portion of that $26 price tag is paying for brand name and store ambiance rather than dramatically superior craftsmanship. This is a pattern you'll notice again and again throughout this list. Natural, simple materials tend to carry the biggest markup once a boutique brand name gets attached to them. The Dollar Tree version does have slightly looser weaving in a few spots compared to the pricier one I compared it against, but structurally it holds books, toys, throw blankets, or bathroom supplies without sagging or losing its shape under normal use. I actually bought 3 of these to organize a closet shelf, and from a normal viewing distance, none of my house guests have ever guessed they weren't from a pricier boutique store. If you're doing any kind of home organizing project on a budget, this is one of the highest value swaps on the entire list, simply because of how many of these a typical closet or shelving unit actually needs. Multiply a $26 price difference across 5 or 6 baskets for a full closet system, and you're looking at savings well into the triple digits for a single organizing project alone. The next item is one that quietly upgrades the look of an entire room for almost nothing. Number 5. A ceramic planter pot with a drainage hole. At Dollar Tree, this runs $1.25. I found a similar glazed ceramic planter, comparable size and finish, at a plant and garden boutique website, priced at $21. Ceramic glazing techniques have become dramatically cheaper to mass produce over the last decade, which means the visual quality gap between a budget ceramic planter and a boutique one has shrunk considerably, even though the price gap absolutely has not followed the same trend. The glaze finish on the Dollar Tree version has a smooth, even coat without obvious blemishes, and the drainage hole at the bottom is properly sized, which matters more than people realize, since a planter without adequate drainage is one of the most common reasons houseplants actually die from root rot. I've repotted 3 different plants into these over the past couple months, and structurally they've held up completely fine. No cracking, no chipping around the rim. If you're building out a collection of houseplants and buying a planter for every single one at boutique prices, this swap alone could save you well over $100 depending on how many plants you're working with. I currently have 5 of these scattered around my apartment, holding everything from a small succulent to a fairly large snake plant, and the glaze finish looks consistent across all 5, which tells me this isn't just a lucky single unit I happened to grab. Up next is an item that instantly changes the mood of a room for a genuinely tiny investment. Number 6. A soy wax candle in a glass jar with a wooden wick. At Dollar Tree, this is $1.50. I found an extremely similar looking candle, same soy wax base, same glass jar style, same wooden wick that makes that little crackling sound when it burns, at a specialty candle boutique, priced at $16. Soy wax itself is a relatively inexpensive agricultural product, And once you strip away the brand name and the fancier label, a huge portion of what you're paying for at the boutique price point is scent complexity and marketing, not fundamentally different wax or wick technology. Soybeans, the raw material behind soy wax, are grown and processed at massive industrial scale worldwide, keeping the base cost remarkably low no matter which brand ends up pouring it into a jar and lighting a wick. The scent throw on the Dollar Tree version is noticeably lighter than a premium candle, meaning it fills a small to medium room nicely, but won't necessarily carry through your entire house the way a stronger, pricier candle might. The burn time held up reasonably well in my own test, burning evenly without an unusual amount of tunneling down the middle, which is a common complaint with poorly made cheap candles. For everyday ambiance, a cozy evening, a bit of scent while you're cooking or relaxing, this performs well above what the price tag would suggest. I'll admit I was skeptical about the wooden wick specifically, since that's usually the first thing to disappoint on a budget candle, but mine has cracked consistently through several burns without the wick going soggy or refusing to relight, which was genuinely a pleasant surprise. The next item is a small decorative piece that photographs surprisingly well. Number 7. A brass finished picture frame. At Dollar Tree, this runs $1.25. I found a nearly identical brass-toned picture frame, similar finish and proportions, at a home decor boutique, priced at $14. The brass finish here isn't solid brass. It's a plated or painted finish over a base metal or resin, which is honestly also true of most of the pricier frames in this exact price range, since solid brass frames typically cost significantly more than even the boutique version I compared this against. That means the quality gap between the dollar version and the $14 version is smaller than it might first appear, since neither one is using genuinely solid metal. The finish on the Dollar Tree version has held up without visible tarnishing or wear after several weeks sitting on a shelf near a window, which is honestly more than I expected going in. For anyone doing a gallery wall or updating frames throughout a home, buying multiples of a frame like this at boutique prices adds up fast, and this swap is one of the easiest to make without anyone noticing a meaningful difference from across the room. I put together a small gallery wall of 6 frames using this exact style, and the consistency across all 6 pieces, same finish, same weight, same overall look, made the whole wall feel intentional and coordinated rather than mismatched. Moving on to a soft home item that instantly refreshes a couch or bed. Number 8. A linen blend throw pillow cover. At Dollar Tree, this runs $1.50. I found a nearly identical textured linen blend cover, same neutral color palette, similar size, at a home textiles boutique, priced at $18. Textile costs have dropped significantly for basic woven fabrics like linen blends, and a plain, undecorated pillow cover like this one doesn't carry the labor costs that something with embroidery or intricate patterns would, which narrows the real cost gap considerably. The fabric texture on the Dollar Tree version feels genuinely similar in hand to the pricier one, with a slightly looser weave that actually gives it a nice relaxed, lived-in look rather than looking cheap or stiff. The zipper closure is functional and holds the cover securely over a pillow insert without gapping open, which is honestly the main functional requirement for a pillow cover in the first place. If you like refreshing your living room or bedroom look seasonally by swapping out pillow covers, buying these at boutique prices adds up into real money fast, and this is one of the simplest, most repeatable swaps on this entire list. I currently rotate between 4 different covers depending on the season, and buying all 4 at boutique pricing would have cost more than $70 combined, compared to $6 total here. The next item is the one with the single biggest price gap I found in this entire comparison. Number 9. A set of 4 cut glass-style drinking glasses. At Dollar Tree, a set of 4 runs $1.50 total. I found a strikingly similar cut glass pattern, same faceted design catching light in a similar way, at a boutique glassware retailer, priced at $28 for a comparable set of 4. Pressed glass manufacturing techniques that create this faceted, cut glass look have existed and been relatively inexpensive for decades, which means the visual pattern itself isn't inherently expensive to produce, regardless of what price tag ends up on the box. This particular manufacturing method was actually developed generations ago specifically as an affordable alternative to genuine hand-cut crystal, which makes it almost ironic that boutique retailers now sell it at a markup as though it were the premium original. The weight and thickness of the Dollar Tree glasses feels satisfying in hand, not flimsy or overly light the way some ultra-cheap glassware sometimes feels. I've run these through the dishwasher more than a dozen times at this point without any chipping or clouding, which was honestly my biggest concern going in given the price. For anyone hosting dinners or just wanting glassware that looks a little more elevated than basic plain glasses without spending real money, this specific item had the largest dollar-for-dollar gap of everything I researched for this video. When you break it down per glass, the boutique version works out to $7 each, compared to about 37 cents each here, which is close to a 20 times difference for glassware that catches light in a nearly identical way sitting on a dinner table. And finally, the last item, a small one that ties an entryway or cabinet together in a way that's easy to overlook. Number 10. A set of faux crystal cabinet knobs. At Dollar Tree, a small multi-pack runs $1.25. I found nearly identical faceted glass-style cabinet knobs, same faux crystal look, at a home hardware boutique, priced at $15 for a comparable small set. Swapping out plain cabinet knobs for something with a bit of sparkle is one of the cheapest, fastest ways to update a kitchen or bathroom without any real renovation, and the material cost of a small glass or acrylic knob, like this, is genuinely minimal regardless of where you buy it. Installation took me about 2 minutes per knob with a simple screwdriver, no special tools required, and the finish has held up without dulling or loosening after regular daily use opening and closing the same drawers. If you've been eyeing a full cabinet hardware update as a way to refresh a kitchen without a full renovation budget, this is one of those small detail swaps that photographs surprisingly well and costs almost nothing compared to the boutique alternative. I updated a full set of kitchen cabinets, 12 knobs in total, for under $4 total here, a project that would have run well past $150, buying the boutique equivalent, one small multi-pack at a time. So here's the full tally, added up honestly from the actual listed prices I found on each retailer's website for the closest comparable item to all 10 of these. I want to walk through the math slowly here, because I think seeing each number stack on top of the last one actually makes the final total land harder than just hearing it all at once. $22 for the Serum, $19 for the cutting board, $24 for the doormat, $26 for the storage basket, $21 for the planter, $16 for the candle, $14 for the picture frame, $18 for the pillow cover, $28 for the glassware set, and $15 for the cabinet knobs. Add all of that up, and the combined total comes to $203 for items you can walk out of Dollar Tree with for right around $12.50. To put that gap in perspective, that's roughly 16 times more expensive elsewhere for what is, functionally, and in most cases visually, the same set of 10 items sitting in your home. That's not a rounding trick or a cherry-picked comparison. That's 10 completely ordinary home and beauty items that most people buy without a second thought, priced out honestly against their closest real-world equivalents elsewhere. None of this means every single item in this store is secretly worth hundreds of dollars. Plenty of things here are genuinely just cheap and priced accordingly. But these 10 specifically sit in a strange pocket where the raw materials and manufacturing techniques involved simply aren't expensive to begin with, which means the price difference you see elsewhere is overwhelmingly about brand name, packaging, and store ambiance rather than any real difference in what's actually in your hands. If you're furnishing a first apartment, refreshing a room on a tight budget, or just tired of paying boutique prices for things that don't actually need to cost that much, these 10 items are exactly where I'd start looking first, because the gap between what you pay and what you're actually getting has never been more obvious to me than it was putting this list together. I think what surprised me most while researching this wasn't any single item on its own, it was how consistent the pattern turned out to be across completely different categories: skincare, kitchen, textiles, glassware, hardware. In almost every case, the raw material or manufacturing process behind the product simply isn't expensive to begin with. Whether it's hyaluronic acid, jute fiber, seagrass, soy wax, or pressed glass, the price difference you see at a boutique store overwhelmingly comes down to 3 things: the brand name printed somewhere on the product, the packaging it arrives in, and the overall shopping experience of walking through a nicely lit store with curated displays. None of those 3 things change how well a serum hydrates your skin, how sturdy a cutting board is, or how a candle smells while it burns. That doesn't mean boutique stores are scamming anyone. Plenty of people are happy to pay for that curated experience and don't mind the markup, and there's nothing wrong with that if it's within your budget and brings you genuine enjoyment. But if you're specifically trying to stretch a tight budget further without giving up the look and feel of a more put-together home, understanding which categories carry this kind of markup, largely brand and packaging rather than material or performance, changes how you shop going forward. I'd encourage you to do your own version of this experiment the next time you're browsing a boutique store or scrolling through one online. Take a mental note of an item you like. Then go check whether something structurally similar exists at Dollar Tree for a fraction of the price. More often than you'd expect, based on everything I found putting this list together, the answer is yes.